سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Listeners, you've tuned in to Inspire FM and you are currently listening to the Quranic Reflection Show with your host Ammar Faz, and as always I'm here with Sheikh Noorud-deen Rashid today. Inshallah, we will be addressing the all-important topic of Salah today. So we'll be going through various components such as what is actual Salah, the importance of it, leaving the Salah. But to start off with, I'll pass over to Sidi. Sidi, if we could just start with explaining what Salah is within Islam, its importance associated to it as well.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Rabbi yassir wa'in ya kareem. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Ankabut, ayah number 45, after A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Utlu ma uhiya ilayka minal kitabi wa aqimis salata inna as-salata tanha 'anil fahsha'i wal munkar wa la dhikrullahi akbar wallahu ya'lamu ma tasna'un. So the translation of this, and recite what has been revealed to you of the book, and establish the prayer. Indeed, the prayer prevents from shameful actions and evil deeds, and the remembrance of Allah is greater. Allah knows indeed what you are doing. So in this verse of the Holy Quran, first of all, the Prophet ﷺ is commanded to teach the Quran, to recite the Quran, to teach the Quran. This is one of the major duties of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As well as this, we find an oft-repeated command in the Holy Quran. This comes up again and again and again. وَأَقِيمِ الصَّلَاةِ وَأَقِيمُ الصَّلَاةِ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ. This is repeated again and again in the Holy Quran, the command to establish prayer. Often coupled with zakat. Often Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَقِيمُ الصَّلَاةِ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ. Establish a prayer and pay zakah. And then sometimes, like we see here, just on its own, establish the prayer. So prayer is absolutely fundamental to the deen. Inshallah, our listeners are well aware. It's understood to be one of the pillars of Islam, as is mentioned in a number of sound hadith, where the Prophet ﷺ spoke about Islam being built on 5, and mentioned amongst them the Salah. So the Salah is incredibly important. And obviously, more specifically, we're speaking today about the obligatory prayer. We're not speaking so much about supererogatory or nafal salah or sunnah prayers or what have you. We're speaking more so regarding the obligatory prayer, establishing the obligatory prayer. And this is, as mentioned, is one of the pillars. It is central to faith, inshallah ta'ala. It is very, very important. It's an important safeguard for one's deen, and it's incredibly important in expressing one's love and devotion for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, we all love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or we claim to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and inshallah our claim is sound, but then that claim has to be backed up with some kind of action. And if we cannot even back up our claim to love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with 5 prayers in a day, then this is extreme weakness when it comes to one's faith, when it comes to the sincerity of one's love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And those who love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they not only establish what is obligatory upon them, but they continue with supererogatory or nafal actions, as is mentioned in the Hadith Qudsi in Al-Bukhari. To just quote or mention a part of it, summarize a part of it, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about his righteous slave, the wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and speaks about how he does not draw close to me with anything more beloved to me than what I've made obligatory upon him. And then he continues to draw close to me with supererogatory action. So that's the starting point. The starting point of one's relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to establish the fard. If one has not even established the fard, then one really hasn't started in his devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're obviously not limiting Islam to the salah. There are many aspects of the deen, but as the hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari I just alluded to mentions that the starting point is fard. Fard in everything. Fard in salah, fard in fasting, fard in one's interaction with other people, inshaAllah ta'ala. Fard in one's mu'amala, one's seeking an income in a way which is halal. Fard in every aspect of one's deen and one's life, inshaAllah ta'ala. So we're certainly not reducing the deen to salah, but we are, inshaAllah ta'ala, emphasizing the importance of it. It has an importance. The Prophet ﷺ made it one of the pillars of Islam for a reason, not for no reason. And to return back to the ayah, it shows us that if a person, inshaAllah ta'ala, is firm on salah and prays the salah correctly, which is something we're going to come to in a moment, inshaAllah ta'ala, then this will help a person with all other aspects of the deen, especially prohibited aspects. Sometimes people say, oh, I can't stay away from haram actions, or certain haram I can't stay away from, or I keep falling in, or I keep making mistakes, or what have you. Well, this is what the Quran says, تَنْهَى عَنِ الْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنْكَرِ. The prayer, it prevents or literally prohibits one, inshaAllah ta'ala. A person who prays, inshaAllah, it prohibits one. Some of our listeners, it may come to their mind, well, there are people who pray salah, but they still do very bad actions. They still do things which are haram, and obviously this is wrong. However, we shouldn't say to such people, sometimes this does happen, they'll say to such people, why do you pray? There's no point even you even praying salah, because you're doing X, Y, and Z. This is the wrong advice. This is the advice Shaitan's going to give to this person. Not a fellow Muslim brother or sister is going to give to this person. Shaitan's going to say, look, the good you're doing, you might as well leave that as well. Just surround yourself in evil. This is not the advice of a Muslim. Muslim should say to such a person, keep up your salah, but this is really bad. If you're hurting people, harming people, or you're doing something prohibited, this is bad. But keep up with your salah, inshaAllah ta'ala. But to return to the ayah, then what is meant that it prevents? Okay. Well, there's a number of ways of understanding this, but some of the ulama, the scholars of tafsir, they said regarding this is if a person prays correctly. Meaning with all of its adab and all of its etiquette. Not when a person just prays, just wants to get the outward reality of salah established, the outward actions established, and his mind and his heart is busy with dunya the whole time, or is busy with something else. It's not what we really mean when we're speaking about salah. No doubt, legally speaking, that salah will be valid as long as all of the fard elements are done. But did the person really get much from that salah? Like the Prophet ﷺ said when he spoke about fasting, that some people fast and all they get from their fast is hunger and thirst. They don't get anything other than just hunger and thirst, meaning they haven't observed the proprieties, they haven't observed the etiquette of the fast. And this is with regards to all spiritual activities. Even something as great as Hajj. Somebody goes to Hajj and, okay, fine, fulfills the obligations, but the whole time is just talking about dunya or just busied with other things and not really engaging spiritually. Okay, the Hajj will be done, but how much did this person really get from the Hajj? This is where we have the concept of Hajj al-Mabrur, which is praised in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ, when he spoke about person is forgiven, a person enters Jannah, he ﷺ spoke about al-Hajj al-Mabrur. He didn't just say Hajj. So this is incredibly important. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us tawfiq. Then when we pray salah, we don't just think about just establishing the outward reality of the salah. No, we go much further than that. We try to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We try to humble ourselves before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We focus on the salah completely, inshaAllah ta'ala. When a person prays like that, then inshaAllah, no doubt, this is going to prevent one from evil deeds. Then a person, after having such connection and closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is not going to think as soon as he finishes salah, the first things he's going to do is backbite another person, or lie, or cheat somebody, or hurt somebody, or be abusive to somebody. No, this person is going to have a stronger connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inshallah, he's going to have a greater degree of taqwa, awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He won't do such things. So this is, one of the most important messages for us to get out today, that it's not simply a matter of just outwardly establishing the prayer. That's not what our Prophet ﷺ taught us. Our Prophet ﷺ, as a hadith I've mentioned, was very clear that the true benefit of these things, spiritual, ritual actions, is if a person's heart and mind is in it. Otherwise, it's still not, we're still not going to say this prayer is bad. Prayer is prayer, inshaAllah ta'ala. You've established it, but the point is you get very little from it.
So, Sidi, just on the point of the heart and mind being in the prayer, what can one do who just feels like they're just going through the motions to try and work towards bringing their heart and mind into the prayer, towards getting more out of the prayer?
There are many things. One hadith we're going to come to shortly, the Prophet ﷺ did even speak about perfecting the outward. Okay, just perfecting the outward, and we'll speak about that inshallah ta'ala. But other things which are important, one is just to simply have the concern. You see, just simply to have that concern, to have that in one's mind, to be concerned about it. A lot of people don't. They just pray. They don't think about, oh, I want to make this a really good prayer. I want to really connect. You see, it's to have that concern and to make the effort. And as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Holy Quran, whoever strives for our sake, we will guide him to our path. So this is incredibly important. Just to have that concern and to want that, inshallah ta'ala, is the starting point. And to reflect upon it and to think about it, inshallah. Just like other people may have ambitions with regards to their career or with regards to their property or with regards to this, we as believers, our goal and our aspiration, our goals and aspirations should primarily be spiritual. I want to pray a prayer the like of which I've never prayed before. And then I want to go further and further and make it better and better. You see what I mean? It's the state of mind which is very important. As well as that, certainly dua is important. You know, to supplicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the tawfiq to pray the prayer in the best possible way, inshallah ta'ala, and to always increase the prayer, inshallah ta'ala. Another aspect of it is prepare for it correctly. Like when a person makes wudu, try to focus on the wudu. You've got a focused mind in wudu, you can take that focused mind into the salah, inshaAllah ta'ala. Another thing I often mention is know the meaning of what you're saying. If you don't know Arabic language, the prayer's in Arabic language, know the meaning of what you're saying, then it's easier to connect with it, inshaAllah ta'ala. There are many other things, but this is just a few. Inshallah, maybe another time we'll speak about, have a whole session on focusing not only on salah but on ibadat, inshallah. Ihsan in ibadat, it would be a good idea.
Inshallah.
We have a hadith in Sahih Muslim where the Prophet ﷺ also spoke further about the fadl of salah, the virtue of salah. And here, alhamdulillah, when it comes to this subject matter, there are so many ayat of Quran and so many hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. We're only today quoting one ayah and one hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, but we'd encourage our listeners to read books like Riyadh al-Salihin and the chapter on salah and other chapters besides, to become familiar with these ayat and these hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There are so many, but for today I'll just mention this one on the virtues of salah. In Sahih Muslim, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, أَرَأَيْتُمْ لَوْ أَنَّ نَهْرًا بِبَابِ أَحَدِكُمْ يَغْتَسِلُ مِنْهُ كُلَّ يَوْمٍ خَمْسَ مَرَّاتٍ. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to the Sahaba, if one of you were to have a river flowing in front of his door, and he were to wash in that river 5 times a day, هل يبقى من درنه شيء? Would there be any of his dirt left upon him? قالوا لا يبقى من درنه شيء. They said, no, nothing of his dirt would remain upon him. Then the Prophet ﷺ said, فذلك مثل الصلوات الخمس يمحو الله بهن الخطايا. The Prophet ﷺ then said, and that's like the 5 daily prayers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removes by them sins and mistakes. Khataya literally means mistakes, but it's referring to sins. Okay, this hadith is in Sahih Muslim. Just a quick point before I speak about what, the main subject matter here. This is a regular technique of the Prophet ﷺ when educating and teaching. So we should be aware of this. Often those of us are familiar or regularly attend Islamic classes, or even sometimes attend Islamic classes, we might find sometimes that the teacher, he asks the students or the audience a question before then giving the answer to the question, or seeking the answer and getting the answer from the audience. This is part of what the Prophet ﷺ used to do. You'll find it fairly regularly in the hadith. The Prophet ﷺ used to do so. And the scholars, they commented on this. Why? Because this, makes the student more engaged, inshallah ta'ala, and makes the student think more, and then it's more likely when he or she receives the answer that it's going to stay with the person. So this is important. And sometimes people might think, well, if he's going to give us the answer, why is he asking this in the first place? No, this is a sunnah of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it helps. There's barakah in it, inshallah. But anyway, to come back to this, so this, as we know, and we've got multiple other hadith as well that speak about this issue, that Salah, it removes sins, inshallah ta'ala. And the ayah we had, it prevents from sins, and then in the hadith we have it removes sins. So alhamdulillah, it has a huge impact, again, if it's done correctly. It has a huge impact from keeping one away from sin, and then also removing one sin. Obviously, no Muslim should look at this or many other similar hadith and think, okay, fine, I'll pray 5 times a day and I'll commit whatever sins I want to in between and they're going to get forgiven. No, it's not. That's not the correct adab with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's not the Islamic teaching. The Islamic teaching, you avoid sins as much as you can. And if you fall into some, then inshallah you make tawbah and you seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you pray salah and these things, and they remove the sin, inshallah ta'ala. But the point is what? The point is these are blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and help remove sin, but they shouldn't be misunderstood. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam never told us, oh yeah, just go ahead and sin and just make sure you pray your salah. This is absolutely wrong. This is the wrong idea to have. No Sahabi ever looked at the deen like this, nor did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam teach it like this, and it would be wrong to look at it like this. And in certain hadith it does even clarify, sound hadith, that this is with regards to minor sins, not major sins. Now, and we have in the past done a radio session on istighfar and tawbah and forgiveness, where it goes into quite a lot of detail, because different types of sins do require different penance, different forms of seeking forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not all the same. No.
So you briefly touched on it before as well, of learning how to actually properly perform the prayer.
Yeah.
So if you could just touch on this a bit more.
Yeah, this is really important, and I think I've said this on this radio show quite often, is that too many Muslims practice the deen based on hearsay, okay, not based on thorough study. The deen is too important to just base it on hearsay. It's the most important thing in our life is our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should study it thoroughly. Okay, and as we're going to see in this example in Sahih al-Bukhari, that even if a person thinks he knows he's praying okay or correctly, if he's not doing so, his prayer is not going to be valid. I cannot emphasize this enough. This may be the second major point I want to get across on this radio show today, the importance of studying. Study tahara, study the rules of wudu and ghusl and purity. Study the rules of salah. It's not as simple as people might just think. And a lot of people say, well, yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted. I made an effort, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the one who told us that learning is obligatory. So this mentality, I don't know where it comes from. You see, it certainly doesn't come from our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As we're going to see in this example, he didn't say to this person, oh, you tried your best, fine. No. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him, repeat your prayer. You haven't prayed, repeat it. And then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he realized that he really doesn't know, taught him. You see, so this mentality is problematic, and it's not in line with the prophetic example, the sunnah of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rather, the opposite. This mentality that I'll just give it a go, or I'll just do it how I know it, and it will be accepted. No. To learn it correctly is obligatory. Anyway, to go to the hadith, is narrated by Abu Hurairah, who says, I was with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and in the masjid. I was with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the masjid. A man came and he prayed, and then he gave salam to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied to his salam and said, "Irji' fasalli fa innaka lam tusalli." The Prophet ﷺ said, go back and pray, because indeed you have not prayed. Yeah, literally, these are the words of the Prophet ﷺ, you haven't prayed. He's prayed, but he hasn't prayed correctly. So the Prophet ﷺ told him, you haven't prayed. فَرَجَعَ يُصَلِّي كَمَا صَلَّى ثُمَّ جَاءَ. Okay, then he went back, he prayed, then he came back. فَصَلَّمَ عَلَى النَّبِيِّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ فَسَلَّمَ. فقال. So he gave salam to the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Irji' fasalli fa innaka lam tusalli." Go back and pray. You haven't prayed, for indeed you haven't prayed. Then the Prophet ﷺ said this 3 times. Then the man responded. He said, "فقال والذي بعثك بالحق ما أحسن غيره." Okay, the man said to the Prophet ﷺ, by the one who sent you with the truth, meaning he was swearing an oath by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I don't know how to do it other than this. فَعَلِّمْنِي, so teach me. So the Prophet ﷺ said to him, إِذَا قُمْتَ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ فَكَبِّرْ, when you stand for prayer, make takbir, Allahu Akbar. ثُمَّ قَرَأْ مَا تَيَسَّرَ مَعَكَ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ, and then read whatever is easy of you from the Qur'an. ثُمَّ ارْكَعْ, and then make ruku, حَتَّى تَطْمَئِنَّ رَاكِعًا, then bow until you are still in your bowing. Okay. ثُمَّ ارْفَعْ حَتَّى تَعْدِلَ قَائِمًا, and then stand until you are still in your standing. ثُمَّ اسْجُدْ حَتَّى تَطْمَئِنَّ سَاجِدًا, then make sajda until you are still in your sajda. ثُمَّ ارْفَعْ حَتَّى تَطْمَئِنَّ جَالِسًا, then sit until you are still in your sitting. وَافْعَلْ ذَلِكَ فِي صَلَاتِكَ كُلِّهَا, and do that in all of your prayer. So this is incredibly important. Prophet ﷺ told him that you haven't prayed, your prayer is not valid. You have to repeat it. And this is important because this brings us on to the next issue, which is if your prayer is invalid or if you miss prayers, it's not simply a matter of making tawbah. Some people have this in their mind, oh, I'll just seek forgiveness and make up my prayers. No. You have to repeat those prayers. Now.
So on the topic of repeating prayers, obviously there's some people who think they don't need to.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the harm of just assuming that you don't need to, and you just seek sort forgiveness and that's it?
Yeah, inshallah, I'll speak about this issue together with the danger of missing prayers. Both of these issues I'll deal with together, inshallah ta'ala. First of all, missing prayers is a big problem. Okay, a prayer is not a choice, it's an obligation, it's a duty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, we don't force each other to pray, we advise each other to pray and encourage each other to pray, but as individuals we must learn and know that it's an obligation before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not like pious Muslims pray and non-pious Muslims don't pray. No, every Muslim prays. This is just the basics of Islam, as I said, the pillars of Islam. And the Prophet ﷺ has a dire warning. There are a number of hadith, but I'll quote the one from Sahih Muslim where the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ بَيْنَ الرَّجُلِ وَبَيْنَ الشِّرْكِ وَالْكُفْرِ تَرْكَ الصَّلَاةِ. Indeed, between a person and between shirk and kufr, shirk is polytheism, kufr is unbelief or disbelief, تَرْكَ الصَّلَاةِ, between him and shirk and kufr is leaving the prayer. So if you were to look at this hadith literally, it means if you miss prayers, then you're kafir. However, alhamdulillah, the majority of ulama did not understand this hadith like this. They didn't look at this hadith literally. Why? For a number of reasons. First of all, you have many hadith where the Prophet ﷺ links iman to la ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. And so many hadith like that, and there are many other hadith as well, which in other radio shows were spoken about, similar to this, where they are not taken literally. Like, for example, you have a sahih hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, "Wallahi la yu'min, wallahi la yu'min, wallahi la yu'min." They said, "Who, O Messenger of Allah?" So the Prophet ﷺ said, "By Allah he doesn't believe, by Allah he doesn't believe, by Allah he doesn't believe." They said, "Who, O Messenger of Allah?" The Prophet ﷺ said, "The one whose neighbor is not safe from his harm." No scholar took that hadith literally, that a person whose neighbor is not safe from his harm, meaning anybody who may even potentially hurt his neighbor, is a kafir. Nobody took it literally. And you've got many hadith like this which are not taken literally. So nor is this hadith taken literally. Now, as well as that, we have a sahih hadith in Abu Dawood which even speaks about it more specifically, where the Prophet ﷺ said, خمس صلوات افترضهن الله تعالى من أحسن وضوءهن وصلاهن لوقتهن وأتم ركوعهن وخشوعهن كان له على الله عهد أن يغفر له. 5 prayers Allah has made obligatory upon us. Whoever perfects the wudu therein and prays them in their time and completes their ruku' and their khushu', the humility therein, he has a promise from Allah that He will forgive him. وَمَنْ لَمْ يَفْعَلْ فَلَيْسَ لَهُ عَلَى اللَّهِ عَهْدٌ. And whoever doesn't do so, he has no promise from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إِنْ شَاءَ غَفَرَ لَهُ وَإِنْ شَاءَ عَذَّبَهُ. If He wills, He'll forgive him, and if He wills, He'll punish him. So what did the scholars say regarding this hadith? They said, look, if missing prayer was kufr, the Prophet ﷺ wouldn't say that if He wills, He'll forgive him, and if He wills, He won't. Okay, meaning, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it very clear, there is no forgiveness for shirk in the akhirah. And the hadith speaks about shirk wa kufr. Okay, so the hadith is not taken literally according to the vast majority of scholars. They said whoever misses prayers is extremely sinful, but is not a kafir. As for the issue of making up prayers, then there are a number of hadith. There's hadith in Bukhari and Muslim also regarding this issue. Let me just mention the wording from Sahih Muslim where the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man nasiya salatan falyusalliha idha dhakaraha la kafarata laha illa dhalik." The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever forgets a prayer, let him pray it when he remembers it. There is no expiation for it except for that. Meaning, there's no other way of getting around this. There's no other way of dealing with this problem except for making up the salah. You can't do anything else. You must make up the salah. Okay. And we find in a number of sound hadith, like in Bukhari, it speaks about on the day of Khandaq, when the Sahaba and the Prophet ﷺ was constantly under attack by the enemy in a situation of war, they missed at least Maghrib prayer. In some narrations it mentions more. In Bukhari it mentions they missed Maghrib prayer and then they made it up. So the point is, and you have other narrations where sometimes a prayer was missed. Never did the Prophet ﷺ neglectfully leave the prayer, but sometimes a prayer was missed, sallallahu alaihi wasallam Muhammad, due to certain circumstances, and it was always made up. And this is, but please don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean that this was regularly missed. There are just 2 or 3 occasions that are mentioned where the Sahaba with the Prophet ﷺ missed the prayer. Final point regarding this, we have a Sahih hadith in Ibn Majah where the Prophet ﷺ says, the first thing that the slave will be questioned regarding on the Day of Judgment is Salah. If it is complete, it will be recorded for him together with the nafil. If it's not complete, then it will. Allah will say to the angels, look in his optional prayers and complete them, and complete what he has neglected from the obligatory prayers. And then the same will be done for all other actions. Now the point is, some they look at this hadith and they say, oh, that means no, just do nafil prayer and your nafil prayer will take care of your obligatory prayer on the Day of Judgment. This is not correct. If you look at the end of this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said the same is done for all other actions, meaning for prayer, meaning for zakah, meaning for fasting. Okay. And everybody agrees, if you miss a fast, what do? You make up the fast and you make tawbah. Yep. Okay. So it's the same with salah, because in the hadith it mentioned all actions are like that. So you cannot have a different rule for salah and a different rule for fasting, because some people who say, oh, you don't have to make up the prayer, they say you do have to make up fast. The Prophet ﷺ said all of these actions are the same. So how did the ulama understand this hadith? They said this is regarding quality. If a person prayed the prayer and wasn't correctly focused and the quality of it was not so good, then the nafil will make up for that. Not quantity, not meaning if you've missed certain prayers, they'll be made up from this.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. I think we're going to have to end on that one today. Assalamu alaikum.